Okay. Alright, now, today I prepared a little vignette to go along with my commentary. Phony, Corony, American Dystopic Future. And I'd like to give you a black pill alert on this one. So, hopefully, this will be my last Phony, Corony video for a while. I can get on with book reviews or something. But I want to sum up what I think is really all about. And that is a psychological operation. That the whole thing that we've experienced here this last couple months is exactly that. It's a pre-planned, a psychological operation. In order to both condition and gauge the condition of the world's public in terms of how easily they are fooled, how easily they are intimidated, how easily they will succumb to fear. So Fauci, who you probably know is some kind of advisor to the government, and I suppose he advises the CDC as well. So anyways, in 2017, he said this was going to happen. He said that, they're going to have a pandemic. It was not unlike those who were suggesting, for instance, that we needed a new Pearl Harbor. And shortly thereafter, they got a new Pearl Harbor, 9/11. And of course, if you know the story behind 9/11, you know that was a prepared event, prepared by elements in international governance and the United States government. There are certain people who have control over the actions of the heads of state, over the Department of Defense. These entities are answerable to this invisible, I'm saying theoretically invisible. There are actually people there who control things, the shadow government, which really the shadow government is above the deep state. You don't want to end it at deep state. I mean, this is one of the things, as much as I've been encouraged by Gerald Celenti's commentary recently, he seems to end on the politicians. Well, the politicians are just puppets. You got to, my suggestion to Gerald Celente is to dig a little deeper into the matrix. The politicians don't set these agendas. They're set beforehand. So Bill Gates needed a pandemic, and bingo, we got this phony Corony. Now, there's different theories behind this. So the question, is there a 5G dynamic to this? I was thinking that perhaps 5G, if it's known, is going to make people sick. Then they introduced this pandemic to be a decoy, a distraction, so that people think, well, no, the sickness is not 5G. It's this pandemic. So, okay, I have a friend, an acquaintance who is a chemist, and he seems to fall on the side of this as being an engineered virus. I'm thinking that if it was engineered, it wasn't engineered to really. It's not like a population culling. It's not the big one, so to speak. So they didn't want it to be too dangerous. However, it kind of fizzled. It wasn't dangerous enough, I suppose. The hospitals are empty. The media had to step in and make up the difference. As a So that so that, in other words, they planned the pandemic, and whether it took better root or not, they still, the media response was planned. They don't need actually a virus of any sort. What they need is a panic, and they create that. This reminds me so much of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. If you're not familiar with that, you want to look that up. But this is one where there's no admission of stagecraft. It's like they're not going. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be real. So the psychological operation, doesn't really need any actual Corony. It's just that the scare is the most important thing. As seen on Red Ice TV, there are some officials saying that the lockdown has taken Corony off the streets, and it's ending up in the households. So, members of your own household are the untouchables, and they must be, they must be removed. They want the CDC they want to be able to come into your house, into your home, and test for, phony Corony. And they say even those showing no signs of symptoms, no symptoms, as long as they, as long as they say that they tested positive. And that these tests, you must know by now that these tests are not really directly based on the genetic map of what they're calling this particular virus. And I can't use the word because the algorithms will probably take this video off of YouTube. So that's why this is I'm using the term phony Corony instead of the terms that they're actually using. But so, anyways, if you have these exosomes that are going to be present, whether there's any actual phony Corony genetic mapping or not, they say that these exosomes will become present under stress and fear, so think if that's not going to make you stressful or fearful. You got somebody who's going to come in and pick members of your family to take them away to some like shadowy, and this is where we get into my little vignette. So this is an idea maybe for an original content movie, maybe like a YouTube original content movie, or whoever else, Amazon, or maybe Red Ice will start making original content. But anyways, so at the Doe residence, there's a knock on the door. It's a representatives of the CDC. We need to come and test for Corony. And looks like your 8-year-old Jane, your daughter Jane, is tested positive for Corony. We'll have to take her away. You cannot visit. You cannot even contact her because we're so busy at the isolation site. We can't have visitors. This is so dangerous. We gotta, okay. However, you can visit our website and check her status. So there, the next day, go on the website, look up Jane Doe, status, condition worsening. The next day, status, condition worsening. The next day, critical condition. The next day, patient deceased. Okay, a few days later, you get a package in the mail. from the CDC. And opening it, you find this lovely little bucket of ashes. Okay, as it's got the CDC logo, a couple of their slogans: safer, healthier people, keeping you safe. It's got Jane's name on there, Jane Doe, and her birth date and her death date. It's very nice. It's even got a little pink lid. Now, I'll tell you about the pink lid. Oh, and this is a really special feature here. It's got a little slogan here: don't end up in a bucket, practice social distancing. So it's even got that nice little piece of advice for you, for your safety. And so this is Jane's ashes. They put a pink cap on there, not because she's a girl, but because that's her favorite color. Now, they in accompanying this nice little bucket here, they have a letter to, explaining certain what's going on. There's a nice beautifully decorated death certificate along with a letter. Now the letter explains, most of it's about, explaining that the color pink is not just because she's a girl. They go on about how, if you're LGBTQPI+, you can get a rainbow color lid. Boys can get pink if they want, so that's mostly what the letter contained, was an excuse, make sure nobody's offended by the fact that she's a girl and she got a pink lid. So the letter explains why, there can be no viewings or funerals due to the critical need to avoid contact in Corony. All the bodies must be immediately cremated. Okay, and here's another special feature. Okay, the CDC, in conjunction with World Health Organizations, the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and others have arranged a special Lady Gaga concert that family members of the deceased have exclusive access to view. And there you can arrange to have a simulated voiceover of Lady Gaga dedicating the concert to your loved one. Hello world, are you ready to rock? Tonight's concert is dedicated to Jane Doe. Let's go! Just dance, just dance. Look, Janie, this is for you. Just dance, just dance. So, all right. Okay, now in the days of Nixon and the Bohemian Grove, they were able to get you in a bribe situation, a compromise situation, just through like a homosexual encounter. So the plot thickens. Many of these children are not actually dead. Okay, instead they have been transferred to an Epstein Island type place to be used for child sex compromisation of politicians and influential persons. Okay, you see, since Epstein's been offed, there's a crisis, a shortage of children for the compromising industry. Not unlike when the Taliban stopped the flow of opium. The United States had a crisis of crises. They had to get in there and reopen the pipeline of opium so that we could have an opioid crisis. And this is why you saw George Bush on the battleship with the mission accomplished. That was the mission. Let's get those opioids back. We're shortage of a crisis. So now the top of the pyramid players like to have a sizable inventory of bribable souls at their disposal. The Child Protection Agency cannot keep up with the demand. Too much paperwork and red tape, because that's one of their offshoot industries, is to procure children for these sorts of sex industry. The Phony Corony situation has made its source much easier and efficient for child trafficking industry. It's been a real godsend, and that's just part of what I think they're accomplishing. Just let the CDC into your house, pick out their victims. It's very easy. finally the world can move forward knowing that CDC and the WHO is keeping them safe and everyone lived happily ever after. And say, hey, what do you think about all this? What do you think is going on? Blah, 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 you know. And I still get the majority of people who, at the end of the day, they trust the actual narrative, the what's being promoted by the CDC and the media, and you know, I'm saying, well, wait a minute, you know, these are known liars. The media, as the you know, on the agenda of the global Marxists, that's what they're, you know, all the media, the print media. I mean, the print media was so bad. I mean, at one point, it's still pretty bad. I mean, I did that one video talking about the fact that the newspapers became phony Corony magazines, where every page, even if it was sports, you know, it was tied into this this war of the worlds event that we're living through now. You know, people keep saying, you know, it's never going to be the same. Well, that's because we don't have the kind of people that are willing to put their lives on the line. And I don't really know how you go about this. I mean, what do you do? How do you conduct a revolutionary war in today's world? I mean, you see what the French are doing, the yellow vests. And I know that something similar is happening in Greece now. Perhaps it's possible. You need the numbers, though. You need huge amounts of people that are unwilling to cooperate with go along with the program. You know? And if you go on LBRY, and this is, of course, where I'm going to end up probably. I mean, I got a presence on LBRY now, but it might be the only place I'm on for a while. If YouTube kicks me off. Now, you go on there and there's an awful lot of people who haven't drunk the Kool-Aid, haven't drunk the phony Corony Kool-Aid. Now, here's one of the dangers, okay? You can't automatically, you know, just say that anytime something comes along, because they could stage a pandemic and engineer something that's actually very deadly. I think ultimately what they really like to do is get these vaccines. You know, Bill Gates wants this vaccine scenario. And by the way, I'm not taking a vaccine. If I need one to continue working, that'll be the day I retire. Okay, so let me put that on record right now. So that will be my trigger. Okay, you know, that'll be my cue. Okay, it's time to retire. You know, but they apparently have something. The idea is this is a vaccine that works in conjunction with technology, so that they can control certain aspects of your psychology and physiology, so that they could make you sick from, you know, like just pressing a button, you know, with this network that's out there, the frequency modulation and so forth, set to interact in such a way that they can just specifically target certain people if they want to. Now, there's also just the psychologically targeting. See, if they get more people convinced that people like myself are dangerous to them, then, you know, the whole society becomes my enemy. Not that I'm calling them the enemy, but I'm their enemy. Let's put it away. I become the enemy of the whole society. Not that I really am. I'm really trying to be helpful by encouraging people to be courageous. But fear is the currency of control. And if you can get society to do your bidding for you, in other words, the guys at the top of the pyramid don't need to directly fight with you. They can get society to fight for you. You know, they always do that. They use society as sort of their human shields, not just their human shields, but their human army to ostracize the people that they want to ostracize. I mean, you see it now in the context of the alt-right, for instance. Okay, they had that stupid made-for-TV series, Designated Survivor, and I've talked about this before. And Designated Survivor, they work into this situation where it's the alt-right. They're the ones that are the ultimate scare. You know, they're the ones who really got to be. They're the enemies. See, so I was thinking also, you know, they're running out of enemies. I don't know, you know, if they're going to be able to pull off like a World War II scenario where Christian citizens of the United States went over and killed Christian citizens of Europe and vice versa. I don't think they're going to be able to pull that off anymore. They can't even do that. I don't think. I don't. You know, I wouldn't fight anybody for. I'm just. You know, I wouldn't purchase any of their war stories. You know, any of their war stories. It's, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not afraid of any of these enemies they have, globally speaking. But what they want to do is the ultimate enemy is going to be alt-right, nationalists, gun owners. You know, this is going to be the enemy. And how do you get citizens to fire on their fellow citizens? Well, it would be pretty easy if they're starving. If the only way, you know, you can either join the regular people and starve to death, or you can join us and kill the regular people, and we'll feed you. I mean, you know, that's one scenario that could take place. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen in the near future, but it would certainly be something that they would be aiming for. You know, that's one of the scenarios they would, you know, and you know, remember that you know, today's extremes are going to be tomorrow's norms. You know, so you hear people on the, you know, internet, and it seems like, well, they're being, you know, extreme alarmists or whatever. Well, that's you know, that's a proven record that over and over again, that's where we end up. Whatever, you know, these extremes are. Yesterday's extremes are now today's norms, you know. So. But this whole thing, this whole phony Corony thing, is just really unprecedented. It's such a big grab, but unfortunately, you know, they did succeed in really scaring the majority of people, and that's all they really need to do. You know, that's why I said, you know, I'm sort of becoming a spectator in this. I'm saying, okay, now they're doing this to them. It doesn't involve me because I'm not part of it. I'm really not part of this. I see what's happening. You know, I'm like a third party observer. Okay, here's the pyramid. They've feared these people into hating these people, and, you know, and so forth. And these people aren't able to fight back. And, you know, you really need somebody in the military to perform a coup. I think that's really at this point. If you can't get the majority of people out in the streets, you know, and this is one of the things that you're not allowed to be out in the streets. There's a new norm. They don't want, you know. I think that's probably what they're afraid of. They're afraid of an American version of Yellow Vest. You know, that's another thing they did. You know, let's get people in the. Although, I mean, you could do a Yellow Vest and keep 6 feet apart. You know, that would actually make the crowd look bigger. You know. But they'd have a number on the amount of people you could have in a certain in a certain radius of like, if you have a 100-foot radius, you can only have X, and that's because, like George Bush said about the Arabs, they fear us because of our freedom. they only hate us because of our freedom. Wow. Now I have friends who are thinking about, what? There are some places like Hungary, Poland, Belarus, and I think hopefully Russia's going to turn more and more away from the whole New World Order. I hope. I would like to see that, but people thinking, move there. This is no longer a sane society. This is no longer, it's certainly not free. So that's what that's probably what's going to have to happen now. Is you're going to have to seek out a new place, because I can't see my idea is, of course, Christian secession, and not just Christian secession, but any group that wants to secede. I really think the secession should be the way forward. No, we're not part of it. We don't need to listen to the CDC. We're not part of the federal government anymore. We don't listen to the World Health Organization. We're not part of that. We have our own autonomy. We have our own sovereignty. We're going to practice this, the right to self-determination that they're always talking about. We're actually going to put that to practice. That would be the way forward. And I think. Okay, here's the thing. I think Jesus is coming back within about 220 years, approximately 220 years, according to the Jewish calendar. And I believe that's how Jesus is going to structure the world. The world's going to be structured along those kinds of lines, where you have this self-determination, autonomy, so that you can construct your government on the basis of worshiping God, how you want to worship God, how do you want to, and that's the bottom line, not the fear of these demonic forces that are running the globe right now. They have to see. Jesus said they're liars and murderers from the beginning, and that's the part of what they're doing. They're lying. And they're using the lies to commit murders, mass murders and wars and so forth. Don't be part of it. Refuse to be part of it. Refuse, even if I understand you might not be able to do it publicly, but you can do it in your heart. You can say, I denounce the CDC. I denounce the World Health Organization. I denounce the federal government. You can say that in your heart. You start there. If we get enough people doing it inwardly, the outward expression will flow, and we can break free. It's all about freedom. I was thinking of, that's what this is about. So if I have a Christian secession movement that succeeds, and you want an atheist secession movement, more power to you. I'm off. Whatever you want to do. Whatever basis of secession you desire is legitimate in my view. What's illegitimate is forced collectives and non-voluntary movements, and especially when you are going to enforce it onto others. See, what would be evil if I said, okay, I want a Christian theocracy, so everybody has to have it. We're going to, start an army and force, like the old Catholic thing. That's evil. The people who want it, share it. The people who don't want it, fine. Let them do something else. That's been Jesus' way also. If you read the Gospels, you see this is how he orchestrated things. This is the whole idea behind love and division. You love people enough to allow them to divide. If you don't want people, if you want them united, that's because you don't love. You're a control freak and you hate people, and everybody must, obey your wishes. See, and that's what perpetuates the whole phony system of, Republican versus Democrat thing. Is because people do not love one another. They will not allow you to separate and have two, because America should have been at least two separate countries a long time ago. It never should have been united in the first place. If the founding F-tards were really into freedom, they would have made uniting colonies illegal. That's what it should have been illegal, is any kind of unification. That would have meant that the founding fathers were actually freedom lovers. But since we know that they were into unifying things, that they were founding F-tards, not founding fathers, So I think eventually people are going to start getting what I'm saying. Now, even David Icke has reflected the same thing in terms of, now of course he ends up somewhere that I don't know. I end up believing that Jesus is the creator of the universe. He ends up something more of a Buddhistic universalist kind of thing. Well, that's fine, but he understands. He's not trying to enforce his Buddhistic worldview on everybody. He's not going to enforce it. He was very gracious in his commentary, saying, look, these expressions, if it's a monotheistic expression that you want for your government, or some kind of secular thing, he says, you have the freedom to do that. But the thing is, right now, you don't have the freedom to do. The idea of freedom religion is a farce. You don't have true freedom religion. Means your religion addresses the government. The government obeys your religion, not the other way around. That's that's another great deception that people fall for, including Christians, especially Christians. They fall for this idea that Jesus being King of Kings, Lord of Lords doesn't mean in reality. It's just a spiritual thing. You can't actually have a government that has to bend the knee to Jesus, and so that's why I just don't. To me, I'm just not. Listen, I was born in America. I have American citizenship, but I'm not American. Not if America means that Jesus bends the knee to the federal government. I'm not American. I can't be. That doesn't mean I'm going to disobey the law or break the laws or anything. I'm just saying we can do better. We can split the thing up. And I'm not saying you do it violently or through some kind of armed revolution. No, you do it rhetorically. Okay? I mean, that's the bottom line. It really is convincing people. You have to convince people, okay, it would be better if you owned the government, you and your friends who have similar ideology owned the government, than these control freaks that own it now and don't want, and won't allow you to have a secession. See? I think this makes sense to... really, it makes sense. Anybody's going to slow down and stop and think. But you have to be capable of thinking for yourself. And that is really a rare quality. Across the board. Rich, poor, high IQ, low IQ. People thinking for themselves is extremely rare. Extremely rare. And in fact, that's the problem with the world. That you always had this broad spectrum of people. There we go. It's going to get on the camera. My spectrum's too broad. You get this broad spectrum of people. There's a tiny little percentage of people that know how to think for themselves, and then over here there's a tiny little people that know what's going on, and they're in the power. They have the power. They're trillionaire. They got controlling trillions and trillions of dollars, and they can do something to steer things in their way. And you got this big mass of people in between that get steered. That's all they do. They don't even know how to follow. They don't know how to think for themselves. All they know is, the World Organization says this, the World Health Organization, the CDC says this, the federal government says this. And then they got the more persuasive media going for them and so forth. That's where that big lump of people, that big momentum of people, and then there's us little slither of whatever it is, 5 or 10% maybe maximum, that see what's going on, know what the right thing to do for people. Unfortunately, to do the right thing requires a population of people who can think for themselves, and so here we are. It's not, you can't influence society based on the fact that you need a broad population that can think for themselves. It's not possible. There's no such population. And so the only way to influence the world is through these coercive, deceitful things that the media does, because they're in the position to do it. Because the media is the voice of the synagogue of Satan that rules the world. That's why YouTube turned into scum. YouTube just turned into MSNBC, CNN, and the YouTube just turned into a mouthpiece for that demonic force. And now that's why everybody's anybody that is interested in truth is going off to other platforms. Now, will they eventually control these other platforms? Probably. I don't see what stops them from doing anything. Look at what happened, for instance, with Alex Jones. Not only did he get kicked off, but then the radio stations he were on got bought out by these people. See, so they could do that. They thought they could just buy everything on the internet. They got the money to do it. Even if you have a blockchain platform, why don't they could just buy the blockchain platform and reprogram it so that to their liking. So that even though you can still keep it blockchain, but they could just get in there and when the information comes onto the platform, it gets filtered at that end. It's fun. Yeah, I need to talk about this too a little more. I tried this start page search thing. Even if I search Red Ice radio on start page, and this Wikipedia thing pops up with Lena Lockoff saying she's a white supremacist and all this stuff. I mean, I thought Start Page was supposed to be, a hidden, neutral phenomenon. There's who got in there to put that up? Who got in there to put that crap on there? And even Thunderbolt's project, the Electric Universe, when they put up videos, all the suggestions on the side on YouTube, all the suggestions are Royal Institute. Okay, now if you understand what I'm talking about, Electric Universe is scientifically dismantling the standard cosmology, and so YouTube has to get all the standard cosmology people, priority to try to combat the fact that there's a scientific revolution going on. What was the other thing? Okay, Wikipedia things coming up on searches. I think it was when I put up one of my videos that used the actual title, not Phony Corony, but the actual. That immediately there was like a CDC disclaimers. I think I did some kind of search for 9/11, and there's a Wikipedia thing there, and there's all kinds of things you can search for now. They're putting these creepy Wikipedia things up. So, man, it's really Orwellian now. It's not no longer a sort of a future prediction. It's here full tilt. And I don't really, I don't know how it's going to play out. I think before Jesus comes back, that's about 220 years. It's going to be. There's a lot that can happen. There's a lot of people that can die. There's a lot of people that are going to get killed by this evil, wicked forces. Now, remember what I was saying about the mass of people. The big lump mass of inertia of people that can't think for themselves. Remember, they're the ones that went right along with the LGBTQ, TPI thing, whatever it is, plus, and they just went right along with it, And if you read your Bible, and this is something that's happened in the past, where that particular lifestyle is seen as very detrimental to God's plan for prosperity and modesty and wholesomeness of the human civilization and society, that it's very destructive, and so God has to try to, God's going to try to do something to prevent it from actually, doing too much damage. And so in the Bible, you'll see episodes like this, for Sodom and Gomorrah come to mind, for instance. That these lifestyles, destructive to wholesome living and so forth, are demonic, and you are participating in demonic activities and so forth unknowingly. God has a tendency to want to step in and prevent people from destroying themselves, but there's extreme tolerance on God's part, that things can go pretty far before He actually does some kind of great divine intervention. You can read those stories, and for instance, even when before Israel, when they were in bondage to Egypt, before they would get out of bondage, God kept them there because the sins of the Amorites was not complete. So there's actually these limits to how much sin God can tolerate. There's this, if you remember from the accounts of the Babylonian captivity of the Israelites, that was a consequence of them not observing 490 years worth of jubilees, which would be 7 jubilees, I believe. Is that right? Let me see. Jubilees every 50 years. Let me see. No, that's 70 jubilees. There was 70. There's some kind of tie in between. Maybe it was. I guess they missed 70 jubilees or something like. Anyway, somehow there was God. They owed God 490 years. Let me see. Right. So yeah. So there was 70 jubilees. I guess that's what it is. Let's see. Let's see if I divide 490 divided by 50. Okay, well, that's a strange number, actually. That's, oh, no, that's right, because it's 49. I'm doing 50. I'm using 50. 49, the number 49. Okay, so that would mean, okay, that means, yeah, you're talking about, okay, that's really 10 jubilees. Okay, so they missed 10 jubilees. And then, so that's 490 years, and they owed God, they owed God the jubilees, and God took them into captivity for 70 years. This is the math, anyway. Okay, this is the math involved in it. But so there is something about, okay, there's this 490 number, and Jesus referred to it too. And I always get strange looks when I bring this up to a Christian audience, that when the apostles asked him, how many times should we forgive somebody, who offends us in one day. Should we forgive him 7 times? And Jesus says, no, 70 times 7. Right? So, there you go. That's 490. Right? So, that's a lot of times in one day. And obviously, part of what Jesus was trying to emphasize there is, don't keep tabs, because, the amount of forgiveness you need exceeds the amount you're ever going to need in one day, I suppose. But there is a limit. There is the 490 is the limit. So technically, if somebody did offend you 491 times, you wouldn't be obligated to forgive them at that point. That's how I look at this. Now, this is it's kind of a trivial. Well, I guess I shouldn't call it trivial, but I mean, it's not the kind of thing that's really going to be too applicable to our discussion in terms of the way forward in this dystopic Orwellian situation we've just been plunged into. I mean, it came on. That's what they could call it, like a tsunami. The tsunami was the panic. The tsunami was the people falling down to the program. That to me was. Oh, I think I spoke enough. I'm going to. My next video is going to be a book review or two. I just finished an interesting book called "What is the Electron?" and it's a survey of competing theories of the electron. So I'll put that up next, but thanks for listening. I hope that what I was talking about, when it happens, that you're relying on Christ, you're standing on the rock, that you're clinging to the cross, so to speak, that as this tidal wave of evil comes over, that you will fear no evil. I mean, I praise God. I went through this thing without, without like being. I mean, I'm more disturbed. Here's the thing: the thing that disturbed me most about this thing was the people. That's what I found so disturbing. It wasn't this idea that there's some kind of, scary, invisible. Look, the flu season comes up every year, and I just, either I get it or I don't. And you don't gonna let it interrupt your life if you're well enough to get around and do what you got to do. And that's just okay. My mom was telling me stories. She was 12 years old during World War II, and she lived in Dover, right where, right in the line of fire. In Dover, England. And they went out partying, they went to nightclubs, they went shopping, they went to movies, and they said, what will be, will be. And a bomb dropped in her backyard in the middle of the night. The ceiling started falling down and stuff. And they just, went back to bed and waited till the morning, clean it up. And it was like, this is it. They're not. She said they used to have a saying: if the bomb has your name on it, that's, they really had a kind of leave it up to God, leave it up to fate kind of attitude that was very positive. It enabled you to function properly and get on with it without fear. And so, I mean, even if this thing was real, even if people were dropping dead, like, flies in the path of a raid dispersal, a raid, that aerosol spray stuff, so you still don't want to panic. You don't panic. You just say, okay, what, how do you go about this level-headed? How do you not, destroy things because of fear? How do you keep the fear factor out of it? And of course, the best way, of course, is to fellowshipping with Jesus and through the storm. And go forward that way. You know, it's ridiculous. You can see that this is a power consolidation. It's a psychological operation, and I don't know if there's going to be a positive outcome for the masses. There's going to be it's a big subjection of the masses, and that is what I think I'm going to be living through as a spectator. I'm going to say, wow, now the masses are afraid of this, now the masses are afraid of that, now the masses are told, they could have done is say, oh, here's how we could get less people die of COVID. Every other person has to come in and get a lethal injection so we know they didn't die of COVID. And so that'll cut it in half. There you go, right there. That's the kind of thing. There's a story somewhere. I don't forget, it was World War I or World War II. Or there's some kind of story. I've seen this before. I don't know how to look it up. Somebody, if you know what I'm talking about, where this group of people that were being so-called kept safe by the government was led here and then lead them there, and then you got to do this for your safety, you got to do that, and eventually they got them to agree to walk into like a mass pit and get buried to death. That's something to that effect. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but that's the kind of thing that they can accomplish through fear. And one last note, I just want to thank all those folks on the internet who have been standing up to this and saying, this is a psychological operation, don't drink the Kool-Aid. So thank you for that.